I've gotta say, in terms of rail fanning, July was probably the greatest month ever. For me, at least. And as you can see immediately by the photos I'm showing on screen right now, on July 3rd, we went down to the small little South Shore crossing near to our house, since I had noticed that every Wednesday at around 7:30, the South Shore train would come through. I believe this is the only scheduled train on South Shore. Anyways, we went down there, surprised to find the train just sitting there. The two locomotives were both standard-ish South Shore Jeeps, with 2004 leading and 2005 in second. 2005 was a veterans unit, and it was really nice to get up and close to the veterans sticker. Literally the next day, on July 4th, I was back to rail fanning again, except this time at the depot. Wait a minute, this isn't the depot. As you can see, I'm walking above the depot. Because obviously, this is July 4th, Independence Day. Whoa, parade. And guess what that meant? The overpass would be closed, meaning that I could go up there to shoot trains. I mean, I can any other time of the year, but my mom won't let me for some reason. Anyways, once we arrived up there, the action started immediately. As you can see, a train passed by before we were even fully up there. And then, I kid you not, a literal minute after that one passed, another one came in the same direction too. This one was an NS mixed freight, with Ace leading, Gevo in second, and a GP60 in tow. And as if that couldn't get any better, we got a horn salute! Well, not us, the other rail fans who were standing down on the platform. Do you know how rare that is at the depot anymore? This train was so good. Today is already starting off on a high note. Then, something else we almost never see happened. One of the NS dump trucks that hangs around at the depot a lot actually moved. You know, it's kind of funny because I love shooting up on the overpass, and yet the one day where I decide to go up on the overpass, the truck that's only visible, well, from the ground shows up. Well, it's fine, it's just a truck, not like it's a train or anything. After that, the excitement dimmered down a bit. The next train was yet another eastbound, which surprised me as I hadn't seen this many eastbounds in a row since, 2022? Anyways, it was just a basic AC-44 and Gevo lash-up. However, the Gevo was number 8,000. You know me, love those multiple of 1,000 locomotives.
Here it comes, right underneath us.
As the next train approached, we get a visual of what you should absolutely not do at a railroad crossing. Yep, that guy's a certified idiot. Even worse, this crossing was malfunctioning and going off when it wasn't supposed to. So, that wasn't great. It was fixed though, so thankfully it didn't cause anybody to die. Anyways, the next train was literally the exact same one we just saw, but backwards, with a Gevo leading and AC-44 trailing. It was even going the opposite direction. However, this time was a mixed freight instead of a grainer. Now with this aerial view, we get our first good look into NS's LaPorte maintenance facility. In here, most of the materials maintenance of way workers need in order to do their jobs are stored. Since there's a maintenance of way outpost located here, it makes sense. Anyways, and I feel like I'm saying anyways a lot. Man, I need a compilation every time I say anyways. Anyways, the next train was probably the best one we got that whole day. With a UP Gevo leading, which is getting rarer and rarer to find at the depot, an AC-44 in second, and the first car behind them was a flatbed carrying a Siemens electrical generator. I know these are pretty rare. I mean, they get on grab bag. If something's on grab bag, it's gotta be rare, or at least notable. Besides just the Siemens generator, the other rolling stock on this train was also great. There was plenty of 86-foot boxcars, several of them in Conrail liveries. One was even in a Missouri Pacific livery. Although it had the UP shield on it, the original Mopac logo was still intact. The next and final train before the parade ended was a BNSF, I think, manifest. All the power was BNSF, but I know NS is leasing a lot of power from them, so who knows. Once again, we see another idiot crossing the tracks while the gates are down. I am getting so tired of BNSF Gevos. I'm not even on BNSF trackage, and somehow I managed to get ambushed by trios of them. This train was also super short for some reason. You thought all that was good, though. But nope. On our way back from the party we had that night, we were jump scared by the impossible. As we were approaching a crossing, the gates went down, and a CN manifest rolled through, with 2 Gevos leading and an ex-City Rail one as the DPU. Too bad it was so dark. Also during this month, my dad was down taking my grandpa to some Indian mounds in St. Louis, as, you know, he collects Indian artifacts, and it was his birthday, so why not? While they were down there, they stopped at the Dwight Depot, and surprisingly caught a Union Pacific local, with XSP Jeep leading, unfortunately repainted, and a standard UP Jeep in second. July 10th was another Wednesday, which meant another shot at capturing the South Shore local in action. It actually does come through our backyard every day in the opposite direction at a scattered time, before returning back at exactly 7:30. I like to try and catch the day train sometime, but that's a future goal. Anyways, on this day, I had spotted an FURX leaser trailing second behind a standard South Shore Jeep. Say I was excited to catch it was an understatement. I was hoping that since it had been trailing on the way there, surely it would be leading on the way back. When we arrived at our typical spot, it wasn't there, so we headed down to Dollar General to try and catch it, where the South Shore crosses over the CN. We found out that it was switching a couple cars out of the small siding here. After a while, it roared into life and the two engines pounded over the diamond, with a rare horn show, as I have no idea what horn these guys blow, and I'm pretty sure it's not on any other locomotives besides ones on short lines. If any of you horn nerds know what it is, please let me know. Unfortunately, since the FURX engine doesn't have PTC, it can't actually lead, meaning that the power set had to be flipped around. 2003, another veterans unit was leading, and the FURX 4226 was trailing. Meanwhile, my dad was still in St. Louis, where he got a glimpse of some of the rarest locomotives I've ever gotten photos of. A Port Harbor, still in UP Armor Yellow MP15, and an SW1200 in the Responder Rail Corporation livery. I have no idea what Responder Rail Corporation is. Anyways, the crew on these locomotives were extremely nice and let my dad into the cab. He even offered to let me into the cab if I was ever in St. Louis, so I've got to get down there in order to do that. He also managed to snap a photo of an NS Manifest and this The Prairie Line SD40-2. In between these next two railfanning trips, tragic moment. So, all of that day, I don't remember what day it was, I don't have any surviving footage, but all of that day and the previous day, I had been tracking NS 8025, the Monongahela unit, trailing third on a manifest. And I waited, and waited. Then it hit Elkhart. Exactly 30 minutes after it departed from Elkhart, as I had done with all of my previous catches, I raced to the depot, and as we were pulling in, an executive Mac moment struck, and the train raced through directly in front of us. I was able to see the Monongahela unit, but not get any footage of it. I was really, really depressed when that happened. Until July 11th. This was shortly after I missed it. This time it was coming west on an NS intermodal. This time, though, it was trailing second with a -9 in the lead, so this was actually better than the previous time I could have caught it, so that was nice. Plus, said intermodal was 23G, which comes by always in perfect evening sunlight. So to say I was excited, as I already said in this episode, would be an understatement. However, when we got there, the Monongahela wasn't the first train we saw, as this absolutely ridiculous eastbound showed up, with an NSAC 44 leading and CP1 in second. But that wasn't really the important thing, because at the end of the train were empty, continuous welded rail cars and some MAU equipment. What? Just behind that was the real prize. An S23G with Dash 9 leading, Monongahela Heritage Unit 8025 in second, and two NSAC 44s behind that. Not to mention the insane lighting, this shot was so good. If only the Monongahela had been leading though. Now it was July 17th. Oh look, another Wednesday. However, this time, the train I saw coming through in the morning had CSS 2010 on it. And I'm sure you know about my debacle with 2010 at this point. Anyways, we waited for it at our typical spot, but it got held up for a while behind a CN oil train with an X-City rail and trail.
If I had a nickel for every time
I got a crappy shot of an X-City rail this month.
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
We waited for like 20 minutes at our normal spot, and when the train didn't show up, we realized it had to be switching at Dollar General, and we weren't wrong. It departed as soon as we left, and I got yet another crap shot of 2010 to add to the books. Anyways, we rushed back to our normal spot once it departed. And after even more waiting, because man, these trains are slow, we finally were able to get a good shot of 2010. Finally. I have been stalked by this unit for 2 years. And finally, I get a decent shot of it moving. Oh my god. You have no idea how long I've been waiting for this moment. And of course it was trailing. Of course it was. But that wasn't it, because as the end of the train rolled up, it began to obey the sign and came to a stop, still blocking the crossing. I was confused, and then I was even more confused when it started reversing. It moved back about a whole train length, and 2010 stopped directly in front of me. Then it stopped again and went back the other direction. I have no idea what they were doing here. There are no switches or anything or any signals. This is a perfectly straight stretch of track. If anyone can give me an idea on what the heck these engines were doing here, then that would be greatly appreciated. And then literally the next day, on July 18th, we were up at the store grabbing some groceries, and on our way out, we got intercepted by a Norfolk Southern Intermodal with 2 AC-44s leading and a GEVO as a DPU. Then, on July 22nd, oh look, it's the South Shore. Again. And you may be thinking, wait a minute, July 22nd? That isn't a Wednesday. Yeah, it isn't a Wednesday right now. I just happened to intercept this random South Shore train. We heard its horn coming from the house and rushed to catch it. And it rushed too. When we arrived, it started dashing down the line at full speed and screamed through the crossing without even a hint of stopping. 2000 was leading, also a veterans unit, and of course 2010 was trailing. I'll be interested to see how much more I see 2010, or how much less, now that I'm actually properly catching the South Shore trains. On July 29th, we were going to Chicago to go to the Shedd Aquarium, and we decided to take the South Shore to get there, which means I got to see plenty of it. Yeah, this month was really South Shore heavy, I know. Soon enough, we arrived at the Michigan City Station, the other Michigan City Station, not the one I visited in 2022. Before our train arrived, another South Shore multiple unit came by, with a 107 in the lead. About 10 minutes later, the gates went off again, and our westbound showed up, led by 106. While we were on the train, we got to see plenty of interesting rail-related things. The first thing I noticed was, man, these trains go way faster now that the South Shore's double-track extension has been completed. The first rail-related thing we saw was the South Shore Museum, still in progress. They haven't finished it yet. I saw that back in 2022. We also got to see plenty of cars along the line. As you can see here, I'm standing at the very end of the train. I decided to, sit in the last car so I could get these shots. They turned out badly, so I didn't do any more like this. We also ran into the SD38 duo, 805 and 804, both of which are technically veterans units, leading this South Shore train. They were stopped waiting for our passenger trains to pass. We also caught a glimpse of these insanely rare Lake Michigan and Indiana locomotives. They were GP9Rs, I believe, and SW series switchers, even an LTEX leaser. I'm probably never going to see any of these on any other railroad. I need to get down here and catch some of these up close. We saw some stopped South Shore sets as we pulled into Miller. Here we see the old Gary Union Station as we pull into the new South Shore Gary Station. It was actually an auto junkyard for a long time before being repaired. It still doesn't look great though, but it's Gary, so what do you expect? We spent like 15 minutes just sitting at the station. I don't know what happened. We saw an NS Intermodal pass on the adjacent Chicago line. Unfortunately, I didn't catch the power, but it was just 2 AC-44s, so nothing to scream about. Surprisingly, we stopped at the Gary/Chicago Airport Station. This is a request stop, and the train doesn't normally stop here, so it was nice to get a nice view of the shelter station. I hesitate to call this a station. Looks more like a bus stop. We caught a glimpse of some South Shore maintenance of way work as we were passing. A glimpse of a couple CSX engines on an auto rack train. And this auto rack turned out to also be an intermodal. That's something I see CSX doing a lot. They're combining their vehicle and intermodal trains. We approached Hegwish, the biggest yard that we passed by. We got to see a IHB switcher. That was a real nice sight, as well as South Shore 2003. Also there were 2 NS AC-44s, another South Shore set pulling into the station, and an NS GP33 Eco. As we finally got into Chicago proper, we got to see plenty of Metra electric coaches parked at the electric terminal.
Maybe because I always have my lanyard on school and I'm like, wait, where's my lanyard?
However, among all the electrics was quite a surprise. Metra 500, one of the 2 RTA Heritage units. I've already seen 500 before on the Bensonville trip, but it was nice of him to pop by. Also, Metra boxcar. What? We finally arrived at the station, and our train roared into life and left, heading even farther into Chicago. After going to the aquarium, we arrived back at the station and waited for our South Shore to take us back to Michigan City. While we were waiting, a Metra Electric showed up.
Electric South Chicago train number 363 to 93rd Street in South Chicago is now arriving. Please step behind the yellow line.
After a while, another Metra Electric showed up. Or so I thought. As it got closer, I realized this isn't a Metra Electric. It was a South Shore double-decker set. These are significantly rarer than the single stacks. I believe there were only 2. And I was going to get to ride it all the way back to Michigan City. Once we got on the set, it got up to some crazy speeds. 79 miles an hour. Amtrak level. It was going to take no time to get back to Michigan City at these speeds. However, I noticed there was a green light on the Metra. I wanted to see the Metra train pace the South Shore one. Unfortunately, that never happened because the South Shore train was way too far ahead of the Metra. However, when we pulled into a random Metra station, there was actually a Metra Electric sitting there. In fact, we were there for so long that the Metra Electric actually departed. However, we never caught up to it to get that pacing shot, unfortunately. We also passed a random 2-car-long South Shore, and this old dilapidated signal box. And some random MAU equipment. And a rare Seattle and North Coast IPD boxcar. And another random mainline train. Before we approached Hegwish and we ended up pacing this mainline train. Unfortunately, we never caught up with the lead engines. Now that the IHB engine had moved on, we got a better shot of 2003. We also got to see a random CN engine as the DPU on a random CSX manifest. Now in Gary, we passed by another South Shore freight train with 2005 in trail and 2002 leading, both of them being veterans units. Here we are in Portage/Ogden Dunes, and we get to see this unique, completely digital railroad crossing they have. Also, more random MAU equipment. And here we're once again passing by those Lakeshore and Michigan engines. The LTEX one has moved and is now grouped with the others. We very briefly see 2 CSX Gevos parked at the yard in Gary. And that was our final rail-related thing before we arrived back in Michigan City. As you can see, there's a fellow rail fan, the first one I'd seen all day. Eventually, with a honk honk, the 2 South Shore sets with the 2 double-deck units roared into life and headed out of the station. And that was it for July. Very South Shore heavy, I know, but their trains are really cool. Plus the Monongahela unit, which means I now caught 3 Norfolk Southern Heritage units. Besides that, the other random amazing stuff I saw this month just made it so much better. As I said, this is probably the greatest month I've ever rail-fanned, which is funny, in contrast to last year's July, where basically nothing happened. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and make sure to come back for another vlog just like this one. Also, if any of my lines sounded weird, that's because I was sick while I was recording this.